Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 19th April 2016. The first article is related to the new mediocre, which is given by IMF chief Christine Lagarde. What she says is, the world has to prepare to a new norm of low growth rate, and this low growth rate period she described it as a new mediocre. What are the reasons? On one side, the global commodity prices are falling. Automatically, it has to lead to lower inflation, and it has to lead to easing of monetary policy and economic revival. But why is this not happening? The detail is like this. The fall in commodity prices, it has led to the cutting down on the expenditure in oil exporting countries, especially Saudi Arabia and other Middle East countries. So in this context, the global demand has weakened and added to that in the Europe, already the debt overhang has led to a weakened demand. And in the developing countries or oil consuming countries, the entire benefits of decrease in oil prices are not transferred to the consumer. The reasons include carbon taxation. So in this context, there is no benefit caused in fueling the demand by the low commodity prices. On the other hand, it has led to the weakening of demand. So in this context, what Ms. Lagarde says is this. There are three factors. One is easing of monetary policy, and then fiscal policy expansion and structural changes. These three things suggest. Now if you observe, when the global demand is weak, obviously a situation is developing where the financial inflows will decrease, the risk aversiveness on the global capital will increase. So this makes the creation of the demand much vulnerable. And second is, as if we analyze the three suggestions given by Ms. Lagarde, the first one is monetary policy easy. If you observe, most of the developed countries, they are at the brink of their monetary policy. Near zero interest rates are being used. So it means further reduction of the interest rates, it pulls them into the negative territory, where you get more money when you take a loan. It means if you take loan of 100 rupees, you need to pay or repay only 98 rupees. So if you deposit that, it will be a disincentive. So it means expenditure is being encouraged to create the demand rather than savings. This is going to collapse the banking industry. Already China is in negative interest rates range, and it also kills the savings of the pensioners, etc. So the monetary policy is already exploited to the maximum of its use. And the second thing is the fiscal policy. Whenever fiscal policy is supported through helicopter money here means, so that is printed currency, then automatically it leads to a runaway inflation, uncontrolled inflation. The third factor, what she suggested, is the structural changes. The structural changes means doing away with the bottlenecks, especially the unwanted rules and regulations, etc. So in this context, what we have the impact of these bottlenecks, it takes at least 2 to 3 years to reflect. So it means they yield or results only in the long term. So here another factor we need to observe. The developed world, the population is getting aged, one thing, and the population is actually on the downturn in many of the European countries. So economic growth can be famously described as two things. It is population growth and productivity growth. As there is a fall in the population growth, the things are expected to go worse. So the situation, it appears to bring, or else it's at the brink at this moment of time, and the world has to present itself to a lower growth trends. And India cannot be an exception. So in this case, the finance minister's decision to stand on to the fiscal path, fiscal consolidation path, appears to be a right judgment for India. And next is this editorial article. It looks at the growing negative interest rates. Understand, inflation is very low, and interest rates cannot be decreased further, and inflation is further falling. In this case, the real effective exchange rates remain higher compared to the nominal effective exchange rates. And also it means the situation is going to become much worse for many of the developing countries which are dependent on the exports. That is one thing. And with regard within the country, if we observe, the savings and the interest rates on the savings are going to come down. It's going to worst affect the pensioners and other people. Now coming to the National Security Summit, it was held in Washington DC, the fourth National Security Summit. The President Obama, what he said is, almost 3 tons of nuclear material is secured because of these summits. But if you see the total enriched uranium, highly enriched uranium and plutonium which is available among the nations is around 2,000 tons. So in this context, the 3 tons is a minuscule. Added to this, the present summit majorly focused on the civilian nuclear material available in the non-nuclear countries, especially for the medicinal use and the laboratory use, etc. But however, most of the nuclear material is available in the strategic nuclear pile. So what are the dangers for this? Now if you come to South Asia, India and Pakistan, both of them have the nuclear weapons. So though Pakistan do not have the plutonium based nuclear weapons, it is still building its tactical nuclear weapons which can be used in battlefield. These are vulnerable for theft and they may cause the damage to world and global security. And the second is, India, it has the plutonium, enriched plutonium, and added to that, it is also developing highly enriched uranium nuclear reactors for too. But however, so the fast breeder reactor, etc., these are going to provide some safety about the nuclear material. And on the other hand, United States and Russia, if you take into consideration, US is on 1 trillion plus investment on modernization of nuclear weapons. The Russia is obviously going to take the similar path. So unless United States and Russia, which are having the major stockpile of the nuclear weapons, takes a lead, there can be no change in these circumstances. So if the nuclear security summit has to show some impact, the lead has to come from these particular nations. And coming to the prohibition of alcohol. Now, prohibition of alcohol has tried by many of the states, but none of them have become successful. Even today, Bihar has promised the same, but the results are not very favorable. So let us see why. Most of the states, they are dependent on the revenues coming from the liquor sale. That is one thing. And second is, liquor sale, stopping of the liquor, many a times promoting the illicit liquor, and it is causing numerous deaths. Third thing is, stopping of the liquor sale is not associated with any public health initiatives. So in the United States, there is something called Alcoholic Anonymous groups, where it is cited to be very effective in reducing the vulnerability or else addiction to the alcohol. So you need to have de-addiction centers. So alcohol shall also be seen as a public health problem. So unless we take all these things into consideration and make an alternative strategy, the strategy will not be effective. And coming to defense procurement policy, so what are the positive steps which are taken till now? You all know, I have discussed these articles in sufficient time previously. Now let us take a brief into it. So in the latest defense procurement policy, the indigenously designed, developed and manufactured category is created. And the second thing is, the Union Defense Minister, a 10% weightage is given to the quality of the product. It means that in a certain category, different fighter planes are there. So previously the lowest quoted price we have taken up. Now we also going to give due importance to the performance. So the performance has given due weightage in this. And also micro, small, medium enterprises, innovation in Indian level. And the next is with regard to the DRDO and private sector enterprises. So now, slowly private sector enterprise will also be given access to the research at DRDO, though it is not yet been finalized. And the defense public sector undertakings and private sector enterprises, there is a huge gap. Now, private sector enterprises are also made equal to the defense public sector undertakings. Added to that, few more things are being recommended by the Dhirendra committee which are not yet been fulfilled. So previously UPA government has given Raksha Udyog Ratna status for various private sector enterprises which will be treated on par with the defense PSUs. So in this context, the Dhirendra committee has recommended for identification of few core private sector enterprises, but it has been delayed. And the second is the defense procurement. It is a specialized activity, and Dhirendra committee has given a radical recommendation to create an autonomous office for this purpose. So this also need to be examined for its utility. So these are the various recommendations given. Coming to the US President's visit to Saudi Arabia. Now let us see the US-Saudi relations from Second World War. So post-Second World War scenario from F.D. Roosevelt days onwards, US has relied on Saudi Arabia for two things: to be a balancer in the region, and the second thing is for its energy security. And for this, US has provided for the military aid and all the necessary assistance to the Saudi Arabia. So now, United States has started moving close to the Iran, and the second, US dependence on the Saudi oil is decreasing. But Saudi is still dependent on United States for its arms import. So in this context, recently Obama has made a comment calling these Saudi Arabia and other countries as free riders. So in this context, the relations have touched the rock bottom now. So the President Obama is visiting Saudi Arabia in this context and is about to offer few more benefits to the country, such as missile defense can be extended to this area, and second is assistance will be provided with regard to the cyber security. That is what is expected. Now coming to India-China relations, you know that Manohar Parrikar, the Defense Minister of India, is on Chinese visit. So in these circumstances, he has met General Chang Wang-kwa in China, and a hotline between these two countries is agreed for. The purpose of the hotline is to build a direct contact between the military headquarters, and it is for a better border management and to take the confidence building measures to the next level. And India and United States logistics support agreement, which is signed in principle, also did not come into discussion at this place. But however, India said it is can make the decisions its own self-interest. And coming to the Sushma Swaraj and the Wang Yi, the external minister of China's meet in Russia. So as of now, Russia, India, China, the trilateral ministerial meeting is going on. Here, the External Affairs Minister has raised the 1267 committee issue. Masood Azhar, the terrorist from Pakistan, leader of Jaish-e-Mohammed, a terror organization, India wanted him to be under the global terrorist list under 1267 committee against terrorism. So in this case, China has put a technical hold on this in favor of its all-weather friend Pakistan. So India says that China and India agreed to cooperate on terrorism, and this dual stand is not expected on part of China. So in these circumstances, in the yesterday's article, if you see, India also has moved a resolution for greater transparency in the functioning of the UN Security Council on the matters related to the terrorism. And coming to the government clears 170 stalled projects. If you have read the last year's economic survey, there is something called balance sheet syndrome in India. Most of the banks are suffering from the NPAs, and they have lent it to the infrastructure projects, and infrastructure projects are in a very bad shape. It is due to the policy paralysis and stalled projects. Now, when the NDA government has come up, it has installed a project monitoring group in the cabinet secretariat, whose major responsibility is to facilitate the clearances as quick as possible. Now, though the government has given clearances to more than 5 lakh crores of the projects, still around 12 lakh crores of the projects are pending, as new and new projects are getting added up. Today, more than the governmental policy paralysis, the major challenge is from the market side. The market uncertainties, fall in demand, and business failure to fulfill the financial commitments to the banks, risk aversiveness of the banking sector. All these are making these projects to fail. Coming to the services sector, the FDI inflows, we are expecting to flow in the under the Make in India program in the manufacturing sector. Now, 2015 is the year when India has got the highest number of the FDI, highest amount of the FDI. So, most of this FDI is in the services sector. Now, coming to Indian Express newspaper, let us see the Panagaria, the Niti Ayog's vice chairman's, deputy chairman's message over here. So what he says is this: the lease laws in India have to be amended. Because of the restrictions on the land leasing, many of the people are not interested in leasing to the private players. So it means it is neither helping the landowner nor helping the tenant. So if a proper law is made to regulate this, it provides the security to the landowner and also the fixed time period to the tenant. In these cases, the land development will be better, and also land consolidation can occur, which can provide for the agricultural productivity. So he strongly recommends for the reforming the land laws in the country. Now, coming to bullet trains, under the projects in India, infrastructure projects between Mumbai and Ahmedabad, a bullet train is planned. So if the project has to be viable, with the low cost the capital provided by the Japan, even then it has to make 100 trips with complete filled passengers between Mumbai and Ahmedabad, which is a higher cost ticket. So to what extent this project becomes viable is a major question. So the bullet trains, yes, they can bring in the connectivity, but are these projects viable for a country such as India is the question. And now coming to the counting of the tigers. Now, recently, Government of India declared that the tiger population has increased in India due to the governmental efforts. The author here compares appropriately, saying, can we say the stars in the sky has increased because of our telescope? So here, better tiger calculation methods, counting methods have led to a calculation of increase in number of tigers, not the other way around. Now coming to Kashmir and India and Pakistan. So in Organization of Islamic Conference, India and Pakistan, they always put forward their arguments, and OIC is favorable in Pakistan. And it says that Kashmir people need to be given independence and the UN rule has to be respected. On the other hand, India says that OIC's opinions are based on wrong information, wrong facts. So this is a rhetoric everywhere in the summits goes on. Now, OIC itself is going through a turbulence because of the instability in West Asia. Now, Pakistan and India can play a greater role in providing for help to this region or gaining the diplomatic influence. So, in this context, standing to the custom and rhetoric will not help either of the countries. And on just briefing, this is the beautiful article today which I like the most. Now, national security, Mr. Advisor Ajit Doval, in briefing to the judges about the security, it has to be the primacy, and he sought the help of the judges in this matter. Now, what the author argues is this: the national security is not a non-political issue. It is majorly a socio-economic issue. A country where the freedoms, liberties, rights are well protected, then automatically it takes care of the national security. That's what is our constitution believes in. So in this context, clearly understand here, the government, the state, always takes the alibi of the human rights to fight against, alibi of the national security to deprive the citizen of their rights. So from this perspective, the national security is more a political and social issue. So in inequalities increases, always this becomes a threat to national security. It means it is an economic aspect of the national security. So that's why it cannot be left to the government alone, and all the political parties have a due role to play. And coming to the water crisis in Maharashtra, the first article says Maharashtra gets almost double the rainfall as Rajasthan, but a water crisis in Maharashtra is much worse than Rajasthan. Why? The author talks about the sugarcane crop. We all know that the sugarcane is a water-intensive crop in these circumstances. What the sugar cooperatives which have got strong political loyalties or political patronage, these are encouraging the cane cultivation. So most of the sugarcane is irrigated through flood irrigation. So a lot of water is getting wasted and there is no proper water governance in the state. Another thing is Nitin Gadkari, he stated that the Maharashtra government is not giving adequate funds for the irrigation. So if you observe the Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat model, there with minimal funds, the irrigation potential has increased. What the government did is, they tried to see the difference, or they tried to fill the difference between the irrigation capacity which is actually created and irrigation capacity utilized. So by desilting, cleaning of the tanks and everything, they are able to achieve, fulfill this gap. Because of this, irrigation potential has increased. Even Maharashtra has built huge number of canals. So it can also fill this gap by appropriately managing the irrigation resources. So that is what is this article talks about. Let us recollect it quickly. Now, Indian defense preparedness here, India's defense procurement policy is discussed, and the Dhirendra Singh committee has recommended for IDDMs, India designed and India manufactured products, and incentivization of MSMEs which are followed. But however, Udyog Ratna status to certain private sector enterprises are not yet given. And coming to the Indian economy, global economic challenges. So across the world there is a global downturn. The major reason being is the debt overhang and also fall in the global demand and decreased imports from the oil exporting countries. Now coming to National Security Summit, it has majorly focused on the nuclear material available in the civilian establishments. It has lost the focus on the core area where the military establishment possesses multiple proportions of the nuclear material. And the second thing is the United States $1 trillion investments in the nuclear modernization sanctioned by the President Obama is a major failure to the initiative. And prohibition of the liquor, it will only be effective with alternative strategies by considering it as a health issue and a social issue. So in this context, states are dependent on its revenue, and also alcohol anonymous like psychological treatment shall be made available along with the creation of the rehabilitation centers. Coming to the FDI, most of this FDI is flowing into the services sector in India. At the RIC summit, Sushma Swaraj has clearly stated about the objections of India to the Chinese foreign minister. And India-China opened a military hotline for better engagement. And for project clearances, project monitoring group is created in the cabinet secretariat. And though it is created, the market forces and fall in demand and risk aversiveness of the banks is still holding the projects from implementation. And USA-Saudi relations, the President Barack Obama is visiting the Saudi Arabia when the relationship between these two countries is at the rock bottom. And impeachment of the President of Brazil. So in this case, I did not explain this. The Brazil has two houses. A president has to be impeached. Both the houses has to pass it with 2/3 majority of the total strength of the house. Now the lower house has passed that with the 2/3 majority of the total strength of the house. And the Senate will send it for inquiry. And also if it passes with 2/3 majority, then president stands impeached. Already we have seen that the pink tide is very ripe in these countries. So, almost we are at the stage of receding of the pink tide after 10 years. So this Brazil impeachment is an example of this. And agriculture, irrigation, we need water governance in India. We need to manage the water with drip irrigation. Water conservation has to be the priority. And water audit has to be undertaken with regard to the export of all the products. And next is with regard to the security issues and human development, the national security is also a concern with the human development and human rights. So it has to be seen more as a social, economic and a political issue rather than a security issue. And with regard to land leasing, Niti Aayog Vice Chairman, what he says is the land leasing laws, if properly regulated, then the land will be liberated and better agricultural productivity can be realized. These are the various articles for discussion today. Thank you very much.